Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
Serious. People who know murderers, were there any signs that something was off? If so, what were they? Attention. Serious. Tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment. Parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an ARMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. My dad would always tell me about the crazy things his work friend would say. Things like how he was going to push his wife down the stairs, or put rat poison in her food. I told my dad that these weren't normal things to say and he should contact the police or at least his HR, but he would defend it, saying that was just his sense of humor. He got arrested trying to hire a hitman to kill his wife, which ended up being a cop. It's a safe bet that at least 90% of advertised hitmen are undercover cops. A real hitman who doesn't want to get caught wouldn't advertise himself over the internet. Serious question, but how do hitmen advertise themselves to get business? I've always wondered. My ex-husband and I were together 9 years and had 3 children together. He had his flaws, as everyone does, and there were a few things, like lying, that were an issue in the beginning. But he was a supportive husband and father and a great employee at a veterinary hospital for 7 years. Clients and animals loved him. When our daughter, youngest child, was a few months old, he started having an affair with a co-worker of his. Ultimately, it ended our marriage. She had 2 kids from her previous marriage who were very close in age to 2 of mine. Eventually my ex and this person got married and had 2 daughters of their own. 4 years ago he murdered all 5 of them, the new wife and the 4 kids. Literally no one in his life could have said they saw anything indicating he would ever do something like that. Wait, what? Thank God he didn't harm you or your children. I know, I still don't understand why, but I'm thankful every day. Jesus. I've been reading up on family annihilators because of the Alex Murdaugh case. It will never make sense to me. I am so glad that you and your children are safe. I remember hearing a story of someone who went to therapy and left his family because he was scared of what he would do to them. It's such a dark, deep depression. And they believe the world is the worst place to live in. So they consider it a mercy of sorts to kill their family along with them so they also don't have to face the hardship of being a single parent with no second income. On top of the world being an awful place. I'd heard a local story from a cop about a woman who had worked in the local judicial system as a judge, a single mother, and she had suffered depression so badly she eventually tied herself to her 6 and 8 years old and tried to kill all 3 of them by setting herself on fire. She wasn't successful and I can't remember why. The kids were never harmed, but that still must have been a terrifying experience. Regardless of the reason, it's disturbingly sickening to hear about. Edit, I think I remember why. The 8 years old somehow managed to get a hold of his mother's phone while she was trying to find a working lighter. Ireland had its own a few years ago. Alan Hoare murdered his wife Clodagh, their 3 boys, then himself. Crazy case if you care to look it up. Just out of high school I spent 8 months in Australia. Met a family that I became really close to. We hung out a lot and I worked for him. I liked the wife and kids more than the husband. He was very narcissistic and far too interested in his 13-year-old daughter's friends. He got caught cheating on his wife for the 2nd or 3rd time and, when the marriage was falling apart, described to his soon-to-be ex-wife how he could kill her and make it look like an accident. Couple years later he remarried, got caught cheating by the new wife. She wasn't as forgiving as the first wife and threatened divorce before she died, exactly as he had described how he would kill his ex. She, the ex-wife, called the police and they re-examined the accident, found the chunk of wood he hit her with before he loaded her in the car and pushing it over a cliff. Serving life in prison. Edit. He died of cancer in prison in 2017. I had a friend who married a guy who treated her like ass. She told me 2 things that I believed wholeheartedly. That if anyone ever hurt her kids, she would kill them, and that someday she would kill her husband. Well, guess who she caught abusing the youngest? He was allowed visitation with the children and he had connections, so the child abuse allegations were dismissed. Guess who was shot and killed? I would trust that woman with my life. I know that sounds weird, but she is one of the best people I've ever met. I asked my last tattoo artist the strangest tattoo he ever did. He was tattooing a black widow spider on a woman and asked her about it, casually. She was getting it because she'd killed her abusive ex-husband in self-defense and felt like she needed a tattoo to close that chapter in her life. I used to babysit for a couple. I didn't go back after one time the mom wasn't there and the dad wouldn't take me home for a Few hours. I was probably 15. A few years later she killed him in self-defense. He was abusing her. She didn't go to jail. A former coworker tried to murder his girlfriend and spent some time in prison for attempted murder. Got out, moved to Florida, and promptly murdered his new girlfriend. Dude was fucking red flags up and down. Needlessly aggressive over small matters. Insanely prideful. And willing to argue about basically any disagreement. None of the women I worked with were comfortable around him. And some straight up called him dangerous and wouldn't be in the same room as him. We worked an office job and he actually thumped his chest at me with his fists yelling about seniority. He ate some of the first girlfriend's face while stabbing her in the chest multiple times. She tried to get him to be kept in prison and to warn his new girlfriend, but he dismissed her as crazy and blowing things out of proportion. He cut the second girlfriend's throat because he thought she danced with someone else. Tampa, Florida? ? That guy is sick. He deserves every ounce of his sentence plus more. Yup. He shouldn't have been let out of prison in Michigan. I guess he met the parole criteria and was well behaved, but eesh.